The beauty of simplicity. We're living in a time where bigger is better. Bigger car, bigger house, bigger bank account, bigger bed. You know, we're living in this time. We're also living in a time of more is better, right? More money. Wish you had more time, more space. It's pretty much the same thing, but more, big, kind of the same concept. And might not necessarily be the truth. Bigger and more may not necessarily be better. Excuse me, I'm a trainer by nature, so I'll use this example. They used to train the athletes really, really hard back in the day because they felt that the harder they trained them, the better off they'd be when it's competition time. And Martin Rooney, one of my favorite trainers, explained to us when I was getting certified under training for warriors that they believed this notion, more is better, only to find out he used to experience that he was winning, his fighters were winning until they weren't winning, and he eased up on a gas pedal with the training. Of course, the training was smarter, not that it was less comprehensive, but he eased up on how he pushed his fighters, and then he started winning again. And so the thing is, we think that more is better, and in actuality, it may not necessarily be better. You know, there was a song called, Keeping Up with the Jones. And unfortunately, our society has actually become like that, more so than ever now. You know, we're in a society where excess is important, and in creating that excess for our own families and for ourselves, we push the people who are marginalized, who don't have enough. And that's not what this video is about, but that's another conversation. The video is about you and how you consume. The idea is to produce more than you consume. I think that if everybody adopts this principle and adopt a simplistic view of how they live, people would be, the world would be a better place. There's this new thing coming out, this minimalist thinking. There are people who are actually selling their homes to get smaller spaces that they're actually using. And we use less, we consume less electricity, consume less fuel, and therefore we're actually helping the earth that way. We're chopping trees down by the millions. Trees are our source of oxygen. Plants are our source of oxygen. So we're chopping them down to make paper. You see what I'm saying? We're utilizing our resources for things that we don't necessarily need, or life has created a need for them, but we necessarily don't need it. And, in some countries they ride bicycles to work all over the place, and we use our cars every day. So you got to see the beauty in simplicity. And I say this because I was forced to live a more simple life. I was already going in that trajectory, but my life kind of pushed me a little bit faster to that trajectory. Like I've said before, I broke up with my girlfriend. We were both, sharing an apartment. She left, and I had to, figure out how to keep the apartment. So, of course, I worked two jobs. I'm paying a lot of money for a space that I probably shouldn't be paying money for myself, trying to get a room so that I can. So let's put it this way: I live right on the line between Maryland and DC. Well, in Maryland, but I can cross the street and I'm in DC. I could take the bus, and it'll take me to the metro. So it's very convenient where I live right now. I'm paying $945, and I live in a studio. And I'm often like, well, how can I downsize? And two modes of thoughts. Here's my two modes of thoughts, never one mode of thought. So I live in a studio. I'm paying $945 right now. I could probably find a one bedroom for $800. It's an extra $145 in my pocket that I can keep, and use it towards something else. And So the first mode is that mode is the extra $145 that I can be making, keeping in my pocket from downsizing, and which is not bad. But I've made myself a tad bit wealthier. The second mode of thought is, I don't have a car, so I did have a car. It broke down. So like I told you, my life has forced me to think more simplistic. I was pressed to have a car, because I felt like I could not get to both of my jobs. I have two jobs, neither of them which are close to each other in proximity. And I felt like I was not going to be able to do my second job, which I'm at now, because it's so far out. So I forced myself to get it, to get this car. I got it. It didn't last me but 4 months. Broke down, and again, so I had to reestablish what I was gonna do. Part of what I did that probably wasn't a good idea was build relationships with some ladies in order to be able to keep some transportation, which is not. I built the relationships because I wanted to be in them, but I dealt with things that I shouldn't, I didn't need to deal with otherwise. But I put up with it because I felt like I needed the access to the ride to get to my job, because I felt like I wasn't going to be able to get to work otherwise. I was wrong. So I dealt with a whole bunch of BS for nothing because I was wrong. So I still don't have a car. But having a car is can be expensive. Especially with maintenance, gas every week. This didn't for insurance was expensive, about $245 because I haven't had a vehicle in a couple of years. So they tax you for that. But that $245 that I had, I no longer put that in insurance. I'm not putting $40 on my in my gas tank. I'm actually putting $40 every 2 weeks on my smart trip, which I don't have to put that much on there, but just in case I want to do something outside of work, I have that smart trip, and I was able to barter a ride to get to work at night. So all in all, the beauty and simplicity, I can actually take the bus to both my jobs, which my situation forced me to have to adapt, and I realized that now the bus isn't so bad. I actually love taking the bus. It's about $4, close to maybe $8 a day if I have to. Most days I pay about $2. Yeah, $2, maybe a little, maybe four up to four, but transfer. But I think it's like $2, a day, for transportation. Typically at the end of the day, I go work out with a workout friend who actually takes me home, so I don't have to be concerned about that, or brings me to work. So I'm bartering by using my training. I'm able to leverage a ride. So that's the beauty. That's the beauty of simplicity. Is simplifying my mind and not thinking so complex, and thinking that I needed to have a car in order to do my job, and I didn't need a car. I'm still thinking about downsizing into a smaller apartment, or maybe to a room, so I can have more money and increase more wealth for myself. I say all this to say that we don't. Sometimes we try to live above our means, and we try to push ourselves above our means, and we don't really sit back and look at the beauty of simplicity. It's beautiful. It's actually a beautiful thing. I mean, it gets cold, but I bought me a jacket, to keep me warm. I'm a people watcher, so I sit at the back of the bus and I watch people. I'm only paying roughly approximately $4 a day, for work. I have my independence. I don't have to deal with other people's bullshit, just to get a ride from them. And I'm good, So where the second mode of thought is where I live, even though it's expensive for the apartment, I have access to the buses that I need to get to work are right down the street from me. So I just walk right down the street and I take the bus, and it'll take me right to work. 45 minutes to an hour to get to work, and 45 minutes an hour to get back home, and maybe an hour 15 minutes to get to my other job. So I've increased my income and got rid of some expenses, and here we are. I'm looking at the beauty of it. At first I wasn't. I was concerned, I was stressed out, I was stressed about keeping my car. I was stressed about the insurance. I was stressed about the, my tags. I was stressed about all these other things that were adding complexity to my life. And I say this, that sometimes when you're down at the bottom and you're trying to climb to the top, what you're looking at is the people who have money. You're looking at them and you're like, dang, I want to be like them. And you're only thinking about the one side of the coin, which is the money that they have. And you're not thinking about how much stress is behind all that money that they have. And I certainly was in that position where I was thinking about, I need a car. I need this now. I want what I want, because more is better. Of course, I don't have a car, so if I wanted to go on a date or something, I have to try to break the ice and figure out if she's okay with me not having a car. But nowadays, when you live in a city, you don't have to have a car. So, but I mean, it's neither here nor there, I guess. But you know, um, I am now. My situation forced me to look at the other coin. I could be bitter about it, but I'm not. It's forcing me to look at the beauty of simplicity, and that's okay. I like where I'm at. There's some peace to where I'm at, and not having this car. I'm not to say that I'm not gonna get a car. I mean, I'm saving up to get a car now, but I just wanted to put that out there for you superhumans, that it's okay to downsize, and it's okay to see the beauty and simplicity. And it's not a knock to you if you have to take a step down, or you have to get rid of a car or anything like that. It's not a knock to you. The economy is some shit. you know um, minimum wage minimum wage doesn't mean that it's a livable wage. It just means it's a minimum wage. So just because you got to get rid of a car, or you're not going to be, you're going to have to downsize from that house. I talk to one of my friends all the time, and he says, if I can get rid of this house, I would. And I know it's not that easy because people have families out there, but if you're like me and you're all by yourself and you're only concerned, you only have to deal with yourself, then it's easier to pivot. It's not as hard to pivot. And you're allowed to make some mistakes, and you're allowed to get rid of some things, but when you don't, and you have a family, it's a little bit more difficult. But there's still ways to be able to simplify your life. Black Friday is the anti-simplicity. It's the opposite of simplicity. You go out, you buy 5 oysters, I don't know, toasters, and buy 5 TVs. I mean, you only got 4 rooms in your house. What you gonna do with 5 TVs? Put one in the bathroom. That I just never understood that, and I've always been a advocate of simplicity. I even if I get another girlfriend, I would want her to stay with me. At 9:45, or find something comparable, where I'm paying $400 a month. If I'm making 2 G's a month and I have to pay $400 in rent, all that extra cash is going to a bank account for traveling, or for building my, appeasing my entrepreneurial spirit, and that's something that you want to look at. I mean, other cultures are doing it. I think that what happens is that, in the black culture, I think parents tend to have the tendency to eat their children. Just because you were struggling when you were growing up, I think that sometimes parents feel that their kids need to struggle so they can feel the same thing. But every parent wants better for their children. I never understood why a parent would want their kid to struggle. Like, you're grinding hard and you know what it is to struggle. Why would you throw your child out there, or at this thing that when they turn 18 they need to move out? At 18 they don't need to move out. There are people who live with their parents until they're 30, and they're stacking their chips, and there's benefits to that. Will you guys get on each other's nerves? Of course. But we as a culture like to throw our kids out there into the wolves, and then when they don't succeed, we give them a hard time about it, or we have to take them back anyways. Instead of just telling your kids at 18 you can go, just lay some ground rules. But be reasonable about your ground rules, because when you're talking to an 18-year-old or a 20-something-year-old, they're an adult. They might not be a fully grown adult, but they're still an adult. So, as parents, we have the tendency to throw them out there and let them and want them to grow up. And in actuality, what you're doing is you're handicapping them, because they're not adult enough or mature enough to make a mature decision. They might get an apartment. A 16-year-old can pay a bill. A 16-year-old can pay a phone bill. A 16-year-old can, pay rent. But when it comes to mature decisions like paying, rent, or paying, gas and stuff like that, or what I'm saying, they might not have that capacity, and you can't fault them for that, especially if you as a parent are not teaching them those things, or and that doesn't start when they turn 18. That starts when they're born, and you have to teach them in the importance of money. And most parents don't really understand money themselves, let alone teach their children the importance of money, because they're too busy trying to make ends meet and try to keep up with the Joneses at the same time. So that notion of getting your kids out at the age of 18 needs to go. Your child is 18 and they're doing what they're supposed to. If they're working and going to school, I understand that perspective. Work, go to school, I get that. If they're doing one of those things and they're not a problem child and not bringing drama to your doorstep, then I don't see no reason why they should go. If they're contributing as they should to the household, and they're helping out depending on whatever the conversation is, I don't see why they should go. But I never understood why parents, I still don't understand that, why parents, black parents in particular, say when you turn 18 you got to go out. You're handicapping your children that way, because they're still not fully mature. And even at the age of 32 doesn't mean that I'm fully matured. I have a better sense of myself and the way the world goes, but it still not doesn't mean that I'm a master of the world. We will never master the world. So throwing your kids out at the age of 18 is not necessary, or pushing them out, or however you are deeming it and looking at it, is not a learning lesson. What you're doing is you're handicapping them, and it's a sure way for them to fail. You take care of them and continue to teach them. Your job is not done when they turn 18. Quite frankly, your job will never be done as long as you have kids. But, that's just a different conversation. So, sorry, I went on a tangent. The beauty of simplicity, everybody. Don't worry about getting more. Worry about living at your mean. And if that means you have to have a small TV, well, that's good. If you have to do without, I don't have internet right now. But I love Xfinity because they have internet on the go. So if I want, I don't use the internet I don't use the internet all the time, but if I need it for extended period of time, I walk to the library. The library has free Wi-Fi. If I can't afford to pay for a bill, because at the moment I can't afford to pay for Comcast or internet, I'll just walk to the library and use the library's Wi-Fi. Or Xfinity has on the go, where I could pay $3 for an hour, or $4, $5 for 2 hours, or $7 for a week, or whatever the case is. There are definitely ways, and more simplistic ways to get what you need. You just gotta be smart enough and creative enough and ambitious enough to do it.